you've just come through this gender reconciliation program. So just tell us your experience.
What touched your heart?
The workshop for me was, above all, an experience of love. And that was very palpable throughout. I felt like we all held each other in this network, in this web of love throughout. And bringing the men and the women together was so powerful, because I've heard both of these stories of wounding separately before. You know, I've had these conversations with men, and I've listened to these stories from women, but to bring them together and weave them together so intimately really awakened my heart to seeing the oneness of our wounding and our pain. And yeah, so I'm very grateful for that.
Reach a place of peace and be able to release the things that happened and feel like I've grieved it, this happened, I've grieved it, I've named it, and I've been heard by the opposite sex, and they have they've made a gesture that has touched my heart, and so in that process I feel free from it. So I can be done and move on. I just feel my heart is full and soft.
One thing I noticed at the very end is that usually in society when men and women speak, and I think when anybody speaks together, there's all these different games that are happening at every level, and people are kind of in this constant kind of like, I don't know, like I think it's a game between each other. And I saw at the end of the workshop that people were just completely themselves and shining through their heart and through their eyes, and they were just facing each other and seeing each other for who they are.
Because this was experiential, because this was ritual, the importance of ritual, the importance of bodies, of getting out of our heads and moving into our bodies, that somehow allows the spirit to move into the space, because we're giving space to the mystery to happen. We're not rationalizing it. We're not sort of reducing it to just things on paper, but we're actually physically touching each other and interacting with one another. So it felt like that was an important part of it. If these guys had just sort of stood and said, "I'm sorry," yeah, or if it was just kind of written down, or if we had just sort of ended there, but the importance of what the rituals were for all of us, and it sort of does something to get you out of your head. I think that's really important.
For me, I've been a part of men's retreats before, and I'm in a context where there are women's retreats, but those retreats never take place together. And so that was really powerful and important. I think too, different aspects of different exercises made the wound for me, the wound that women have experienced, more palpable and in my face. And as women stood to witness to this is true of me, I haven't experienced that kind of thing before. And we had talked about, well, we may have been able to put some numbers to them that may be accurate. All of a sudden, faces stood up to embody those numbers, and that made that really powerful.
I traveled far away from Colombia to be here and experience this healing workshop for my soul, for my feminine experience, and I feel also for my whole family. We have been talking between our mates of the workshop, and I know that the work that has been done here during these 3 days has healed a lot of the lineage, my family lineage, or my family line.
I think it made very clear that the wound between genders, that there aren't two wounds, that there's not a wound that women have and a wound that men have. There is one wound manifesting itself in different ways in these two sexes, but it's one deep wound. And you can't heal one part without healing the other because there aren't parts to it.
I'm gonna agree with you on that, the importance of it being together, because this past September I was at a women's retreat where we did the Joanna Macy Truth Mandala, and it was immensely powerful, and it was very, very beautiful, but it did feel incomplete. There was an aspect of it that felt undone because there wasn't a naming or recognition of the other side of that one wound. And I do think that it's critical to be together in that way. And had we not been together, it wouldn't have been. It wouldn't have been the same.
No, it's such a powerful thing for us too. We were talking about it. That whole ceremony blew our minds too.
We were talking about how when we came up with a concept, it felt right, but we had no idea how it would come alive. It was like Spirit just came and breathed into the ritual in a way with power that we hadn't expected. We couldn't have known planning it that it would have had such.
No, it was like took a little while afterwards, kind of like recover from it.
Yeah. There was a lot of love channeled through you in that gesture. It was so palpable. It was so much bigger than us.
Well, I want men to hear that when they are close to a woman, they feel like they are visiting a temple. Like they feel, they think, and they express themselves as going into the temple. And I will say it now, that I want women to express, feel, and think that when we are close to a man, we feel that we are going to a temple also.
And did you have any glimpse of this kind of experience?
During this worship?
Yes.
I think we were...
That was a bit of a leading question, I know.
I think the whole experience was that to feel embrace in a big temple of the hearts of all we shared the experience. I think it was a big heart. Like
Heart or hurt?
Both.
Okay, both maybe, yeah.
Heart. Yes. It was the whole experience feeling like that, like we were in a temple.
I myself rarely had the opportunity to really feel that I was completely myself and seeing somebody else completely myself. We were watching us and there was no baggage, literally no baggage between us. It was just, and it wasn't just like one person, like that one person you got close to. It was like going from person to person to person. And people who in the street, if you normally knew, if most people, maybe you would judge them a little bit, or you would think this or that about them, and you'd come up with so much baggage about it. Here it wasn't like that at all. It was just staring into people's eyes and hearts. It was pretty amazing.
I know the men are sharing, but I just want to respond
No,
to that.
no, that's fine.
No,
You're
please.
saying like it's so natural, but it's not at all natural for me to make myself as vulnerable as I was when I was sharing. I mean, that's just about as vulnerable as a person can get. And I felt so completely held by everyone in the room during that process. And I'm not, well, previously I wouldn't have been somebody who likes to show those parts, the wounded parts. So, although maybe it felt totally natural.
I actually dislike sharing completely.
Okay, but you were like fine listening. You're like, I can listen.
But maybe on the same account, I think the space creates the safety for it, because if it had just been a one-on-one, I mean, in my own marriage, I would see myself as being able to bring that to the table, but I also bring a desire to solve or resolve.
Yeah.
And that space doesn't allow that. It's, you're here to listen, and the women, as they're sharing, realize that, and so it creates maybe for them a different type of permission and vice versa.
Without that basket of love, without that kind of woven trust, I don't think I would have been able to get that vulnerable. And without that depth of vulnerability, then I don't think I would feel free like I do now, to really just to let it go, to be, all right, I've been heard, to really have been heard and felt.
There's a real risk today, too, for our generation to say, oh, well, the women's movement has happened, the feminist movement has happened, we've healed the wounds, let's move on. And it was so clear. We had, someone pointed out, women and men, I guess, from every generation. We had people in their 20s, their 30s, their 40s, all the way up to their 80s. And the wounds were pretty much the same across every age. And so we can think we've changed things, but it was pretty evident the change that needs to happen has not happened as widely as we might hope. So the work is still very necessary.
Yeah, and the importance of women to experience and listen to the wound that men carry, because it's like you said, it's easy for us to just sort of play that card over and over of like, oh, we're the victims, we're the ones who've suffered, you don't understand us, you don't know anything about us. But the reality is that, as you said so beautifully earlier, it is one wound, and it's important for us to make that circle journey.
And I would also say that we talk about gender reconciliation, but it's not gender reconciliation, it's human reconciliation.
Yes.
Because every single relationship that you ever have is either with a man or a woman. So it's really about trying to heal the very basic flaw or difficulties of being human, and whether it's cultural or even deeper than that, it feels like you're healing the universe while you're going through it and ascending to a higher mode of living. And it might take 1,000 years, but at least we're starting.
Which is why this model applies to every wound in the human family, be it between gay people and straight people, between religious traditions, between Christians and Muslims. This work can be applied to each of those wounds, because still, again, it's all one wound.